Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our shir in the Ramchal's Adir BaMarom, his commentary on the Ijer Rabbah, illuminating the depths of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The Ijer Rabbah was the first gathering where Rabbi Shimon sat with the Chavraya Kadisha outside in the granary and darshan the secrets of the loftiest spaces of Atika and Zer Anpin, of the unity between Keser, the unity between Hashem's unbridled goodness that remains in its elevated state prior to any disintegration or concealment, and Zer Anpin, which is the orientation that we have towards ourselves, like we've been talking about, that our relationship to ourselves, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the world around us, is always going to be by way of the two lower partsufim, Zer Anpin and Nukva, the seven lower spheros, which is really the process that we've been talking about, in particular, the stamp of that experience, which is Malchus itself, the place where the Shekhinah is found and the place where human experience is found. In the Ijer Rabbah, the orientation of the Ijer Rabbah, the Nakuda of the Ijer Rabbah, the great Idra, is the connection between Keser and Zer Anpin, how our own experience down here is ultimately connected and in the loftiest places imaginable, in the Hanhaga of Atika Kadisha, in the Hanhaga of Arich Anpin. That's the Avodah of the Idra Rabbah. That's what we're seeing in this place, in the Idra Rabbah, in the Adir BaMarom, the connection between above and below the revelation, how the desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to reveal goodness and unity at every moment is inherently connected to the process in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals, which is concealment and disintegration. And the unity between these two poles, the highest point of Keser and the lowest point of Malchus, is ultimately going to be the secret of what the Idra Rabbah is all about, how to connect above to below and below to above. The Idrazuta, which is what takes place on Lag BaOmer, where we're celebrating the Patira, the elevation of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai from his orientation in time and space, and the constriction of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai as a person who lived in a particular point, or a person who lived at a particular point, and the Yuma de Hilula, which is the ascendance of the Neshama of Rabbi Shimon, which is going to now be mispashet, just like the Neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu, because ultimately they're reflective of the same or, the same Nishma Satorah that comes down into the world. And in this Hilula delay, in this Yom of celebration of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, what we encounter is the Idrazuta, seemingly a lower gathering, seemingly a time where we're not talking about the grand unity between Keser and Zer Anpin, between desire and the elevated realms of functioning and our lower space of functioning, but rather in the Idrazuta, which is seemingly a lower thing, seemingly something that's being discussed that is of less spiritual import than the Ijer Rabbah. Nevertheless, the Idrazuta is going to be higher because it reveals the secret of Abba and Ima. It reveals the secret of Chachma and Bina. Chachma and Bina are the ways in which we learn to incorporate the connectivity which the Ijer Rabbah reveals to us is Keser, Zer Anpin, and Malchus. The Ijer Rabbah talks about the highest points imaginable and our lowest point imaginable, which is our point of consciousness, our point of separation and division and the mind-body dualism that we find ourselves caught up in, which the Ramchal is really coming to be Mevara for us. But in this vast distance between Arich Anpin, Keser, and Zer Anpin and Malchus, so the bridge, the Gesher Tzar Ma'oid that connects the two of those realms is going to be Abba and Ima, Chachma and Bina, which are going to be discussed in the Idrazuta. They're more hidden, they're more concealed, the process is more humble in its processing, and in spite of the fact that it looks lesser than the revelation of the Ijer Rabbah, nevertheless, in the silent expression and the depths of unity in the Idrazuta, we're Megala the secret of V'chai La'olam, that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai gives us the tools not only for understanding the light that Rabbi Shimon brings down into the world, which is the connection between Keser and Malchus. Pnimius HaTorah is always coming to teach us the secrets of the Ijer Rabbah, which are the connection between the highest realm and the lowest realm. But the criticism or the critique very often of Pnimius HaTorah is that while it discusses the ideals between Keser and Zer Anpin and Malchus, it doesn't necessarily discuss the methodology in which one can actually cultivate a way of living in terms of that idea to bring it down into day-to-day experience on a therapeutic level, on a psychological level, even if a person is, like myself, unworthy of doing it and on a voda type of level. At least we benefit from the medicinal remnants that are inherent within the depths and the drops of these Torahs. And so the critique very often of Pnimius HaTorah is that, yes, it can reveal to us the connection between Keser, the infinite realms of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Zer Anpin and Malchus, down here where we experience our lives as limited creatures, which is the secret of the Ijer Rabbah, but it doesn't offer you the tools in which to draw that elevated consciousness back into practical functionality. And to that comes along the Idrazuta, a more silent expression, and the expression of Rabbi Shimon's kind of Aliyah, Rabbi Shimon's Hilula, the revelation that in order to connect to that place of Keser, drawing it down into the lowest place, we have to enter into the methodology, the tools given over to us by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Idra, which is the recognition that whether it's here, whether it's there, Rabbi Shimon is revealed or whether Rabbi Shimon is concealed, a person through their Chachma and Bina, the Chachma of the mind, which drips into the wisdom of the heart, and the wisdom of the heart, which ascends upwards to the wisdom of the mind, that place of Chachma and Bina, that goes with a person. That goes with a person wherever they are. And ultimately, when we can uncover that secret of the Idra, which is revealed on Lag BaOmer, which is that in order for the sake of connection, one not need actually be in a space of connection because the connection exists in here, like Rashbi describes, B'chad Katira Aktarina, I've unified myself to you in one singular unification. How is that possible? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai lived a life of splintering. The biggest splinter in the world is the Rabbi Shimon of Torah Shebal Peh in a revealed way, and the Rabbi Shimon of the Zohar Kadosh in a concealed way. That split of Rabbi Shimon, of Sham Avon, that there's some element of concealment in that place, but at the same point we have the capacity of refining it to the Mash Avon, to refining any possibility of negativity. The stira within the writings of the Arizal and the Zohar, the Rabbi Shimon was rooted in the space of Chachma or Bina. That splitness that we encounter in the life of Rashbi's Or is unified in the light of the Idra, which is the secret of wherever a person is, they can uncover that light of the connection between Keser and Zer Anpin and Malchus, which is why when we look at the Idra took place outside. The Idra took place outside in the northern lights of Eretz Yisrael in the open-aired sky, because in the Chitzonius HaOlam, in the birurim of the Chitzonius HaOlam, when we look at things from an external perspective, it's easy to talk about the connection between Keser and Malchus, between Atika Huzav and Zahu Atika, that the Keser and Zer Anpin, our functioning and the higher level of functioning, are ultimately unified in a singular unity. It's easy to talk about that in a Chitzonius place, from a Chitzonius perspective, from the Idra perspective, which is just Chitzoni in relationship to the Idra. So what we see there is that it's dependent upon a particular space, it's dependent upon a particular place in the outside of the world, as in contradistinction, rather, to the Idra, which is inside, which is on the inside of the inside. It's inside of Rashbi's house. It's inside of Rashbi's room. It's inside. It's on the deathbed of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And that secret of the Abba Ve'ima, of the train ray and the Lemus Parshin, that are always going with a person, is the revelation that even when a person can't tap into the physical connection to Rabbi Shimon or to the real orientation to the place of Rabbi Shimon, the deepest secret of Rabbi Shimon is the secret of Abba and Ima, the train ray and the Lemus Parshin, which is the secret of how we're mamshich the light of Keser into Zer Anpin and into Malchus, which is the methodology through which a person draws this down, through the Yira and the Ahava, through the Kanfayona, from the Gadfin, from the Ahava and the Yira, the two tools that we have to our exposure, Chachma and Bina, Bittel and Hishtaikakus, Menucha and Oineg. Those two things are in truth the deepest message which come out from the Idra, which the Ramchal doesn't have a beer on. The Ramchal doesn't have a beer on the Idra. Rav Menachem and Mishklav has a beer on the Idra. There's different birurim on the Idra, but over here, what we're finding is Rashbi being revealed in a way of the Idra, which is the connection between above and below, even without the tools or the methodology to bring it about. And the Ramchal is bringing us back into contact with the Malchus itself, which, as we said, is this deficient thing, so to speak, that appears deficient, it's unfulfilled, it's devoid of its content that makes it full, but nevertheless, that depletion, that emptiness, is not because Malchus is only going to be filled by something outside of itself, but rather the fullness that belongs to Malchus is not yet in Malchus itself yet. Zer Anpin, the Hanhaga of the Hashpa'a, which is what we have relationship to, which is what comes down from above to below, that is where the hidden light, the hidden lost light of Malchus continues to exist, and it's our job to bring that light into Malchus itself. Now, why did Hashem want it that we should be the ones to bring the light of Zer Anpin, the light of the Elyonim, down into Malchus itself? HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have obviously fulfilled Malchus itself so that there would be a unity and a quality of unity that continues to exist between Zachar and Nekeva, between the Shemesh and the Yereach, between Hashpa and Kabbalah. Nevertheless, we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted that there should be Bechira in the world. The reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants there to be Bechira in the world, which is the very delicate hidden middle point that demands such a delicate setup of an existence that is going to, at every moment, share the exact necessary balance between concealment and revelation, so as to create the perfect space wherein the individual, in accordance with all of their circumstances, their privilege, etc., can make a choice, can make an actual radical nakuda of bechira chavshis, and the radical delicate nature in which that process needs to be set up. All of that is so that we ourselves can engage in Bechira and be Mamtik Malchus itself, to be Mashlim Malchus itself, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to fulfill through our own volitional behavior, where we come in contact with ourselves in the most unified way possible, as we said in the name of Leshem, so that we can enjoy not only from the outgrowth of the unity itself, but to taste from the process that leads to the unity itself. This is the entire reason that the Ramchal operates in a temporal universe, at least for our sake and purposes, where there is a split between the past, the present, and the future. The past and the future are both oriented to a unity that was and will be revealed in the future, where all disparity and all separation are revealed to have been nothing but a mirage that was real in spite of the fact that it didn't truly exist. And we live in the middle. We live in the middle that is wedged between the beginning and the end, where we seem to be lost on our own. We seem to no longer have that light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unity that is fundamentally revealed, but rather we live within the toch. We live within that simsum. We live within that vak, that shis Alfei Shan and the Have Alma, and it's specifically there in that in-between space, in that places of arrested development prior to the revelation, at the end, that the middle was also part and parcel of an unfolding of the beginning that has always been revealing itself. We live caught up in the middle, and in that middle point, in that place of Rishus, in that Chalal Shel Rishus, it's our responsibility, the Ramchal says, to be boicher, that we should be mamshich the or, we should be mamshich the goodness. And the way that that takes place is in one of two ways. The Ramchal says there is the Hasar Sarah, there is getting rid of all of the privation and concealment that grows upon Malchus. Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows for there to be an element in this worldliness that appears to be devoid of divine governance, Gav for even a moment's thought to claim that that's a possible real thing. Once the Ramchal sets up that we should live in that universe where that is the Hava Amina, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is absent from the middle because it's up to us to reveal Hashem in the middle, Memela, that brings about certain layers of concealment that come the moment a person's mind allows for the possibility of there being something devoid from the radical unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Memela, Nechashim v'Akvarim now emerge. The snakes and the scorpions emerge. And that's where all of these visuals and these notions and these concepts that the Ramchal is misasek in so much, negativity, falling, struggle, and all of those real human elements that we experience when we learn Mesilas Yesharim, a real understanding of what it means to be a human being with all of the concealments, and in the Pnimiyas HaTorah writings in a more revealed way, the Ramchal discusses the nature of Klipa, the nature of Sitra Achra, the nature of the Yetzer, which wants to fight against the person, and one can almost lose themselves, God forbid, and think that there's maybe a standalone koach to this power being described, God forbid, which would be tantamount to Shtei Rishuyos and the biggest kfir in the world, and not only the biggest kfir in the world, but the very opposite of what Rabbeinu HaRamchal has come to teach us over and over in Derech Hashem and Das Tfunos, how all shnios, all separation is in truth fundamentally part and parcel of a singular unity that is always perpetually being revealed. So this Havamina that emerges in the realm of the writings of the Ramchal, and also you find in the writings of the Gra, because the two are very much connected. Ramchal is also very much connected to Toras HaChasidus, but in a different way. You see that Toras Chabad doesn't necessarily quote the Torah of the Ramchal. Toras Kamarna has its own unique relationship with the Ramchal, but it doesn't mean that it's an oppositional relationship, or rather it's an oppositional unity, as we know, that every relationship that comes about by way of machlokas is ultimately to reveal an even deeper light of unity. But nevertheless, the Ramchal and the Gra give more of a koyach to the Sitra Achra, because we are operating in that middle space where, in terms and conditions of what the purpose of this revelation is, this revelation of concealment or deficiency, it needs to appear really that there's some standalone koach, God forbid. But obviously we know that it's always just mitzidenu, like any element of tzimtzum, and the Ramchal is ultimately being megala, the deepest level of yichud, the soid hayichud, the yichud of the roish and the soif, like all of the tzaddikim, like the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, like the Rashash, like the Gra, like the Ramchal is doing it. All of the tzaddikim are doing it. The Baal HaSulam, who took a lot from the Ramchal as well, as we're going to see. And so now we are here standing at Malchus again. Standing at Malchus, and the Ramchal is going to be reiterating what it is that we're trying to do. And we're on Daf Tes at the bottom, and we're going to try and cover a little bit of ground. V'tira. Now come and see Shebizman Miyatay Reach. In the Zman of Miyatay Reach, this reflection of the deficiency of the feminine, the deficiency of that feminine quality of Malchus, which appears to be devoid of its fulfillment, and that fulfillment belongs Eitzel, the Mashpia Baiza, which creates that binary opposition and that balance that we live in so often, because we don't don't properly understand the pre-existing fullness of Malchus. We assume that Malchus is just an empty thing that can be filled from time to time, rather than truly understanding that Malchus is a perpetually filled thing, but the purpose of Malchus is to make it appear as if Malchus itself is in need of fulfillment, because that koyach chisaron and that koyach of birurim is where the tesefes kishut and the additional adornment of perfection and the tainug and the schoik, the yitzchak, is going to come from. So now see, in the time of the Miyat HaYareach, which was the deviation of the moon from its prior fullness, Hates Spheros, the fulfillment, the upper 9 spheros of Nukva, of Malchus, meaning the Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Bura, Tveres, Netzach, Hoid, and Yisoid of Malchus, go upwards to Nichnesu Bezer Anpin Atzmo. They ascend upwards in an act of gullus, so to speak. They can no longer maintain their original fullness within the receptacle of Malchus, because now we're descending into that diminution of Malchus, that deficiency orientation of Malchus, and those 9 lights have to go up to a place to wait until it's time to return back down. So it appears that they belong to Za, when in truth all they do is they find the resting place there, and then they emerge from Zer Anpin afterwards, like we saw last week. And in truth, this light, which now goes up to Zer Anpin and that it previously existed within Malchus, is the light of Malchus that exists within Zer Anpin itself, meaning to say that this in-between process that Malchus gives up of its own and sends it back up to Zer Anpin, and what that causes is the revelation of the chelik of Malchus that also exists within the Zer Anpin itself. But nevertheless, those lights that are going to come back down belong to Malchus herself. The Kfar Noida, and we already know Tam Hamiyut, why HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Memayet, why Hashem was Memayet the Levana, Leichu Ma'ati Atatzmech, and we'll see why the moon had to do it herself, Kaviyachol, because all of this was Zahaya L'Teitz Messias L'Bechira V'Schar V'Oynesh, the entire purpose of leaving this empty place, this place that appears devoid and in need of human functionality in order to fulfill it and to bring about its actual tikkun, is a decision that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has made already from the start to allow for there to be appearance of deficiency, because in truth, and all of this is in order to provide the element or the ground necessary for Bechira and Schar Va'onesh, those almost impossible qualities that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals in this world in the secret of Anes, which is human responsibility, in spite of the fact that it's fundamentally clear that all that exists is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that what HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself could have performed from the beginning of creation, which was fulfill Malchus and reveal the secret of Zer Anpin and Malchus, the Trema Oris HaGadolim, and show how the Shemesh and the Levana are miyuchad b'tachlis ha'achdus. Nevertheless, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted what he himself could have performed immediately to be done through human beings themselves, so that we can benefit from the journey, so that we can encounter the ti'ima of the tam ha'etz, ketam ha'pri, of the secret of the process being endowed with the ore itself of the arrival. Ukvar pirashti zeh b'makom acher, and I've already explained this elsewhere, says the Ramchal. Because in truth, Shar HaSfiros nivaru kol chalkehem, ach nukva loy nivaru kol chalkeha kedei lahaniach makom la'avoda. Because in truth, when we look at the grand total of the Sfiros through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs reality, the various partsufim, which when looked at the various partsufim, what one will come down to is always the 10 Sfiros, and when one looks at each Sfira within those 10 Sfiros, one will come to another 10 Sfiros, and when one looks at the particular Sfira amongst those 10 particular Sfiros that emerged out of the prior set of 10 spheros, one will come to find another 10 and another 10 and another 10 ad infinitum. Everything is built upon the secret of the 10 spheros, which are simply the basic framework, the basic gestalt or formation necessary for there to be a revelation of anything from a state of pure potential into a state of actualization. The 10 spheros are nothing other than the 3 tripartite breakdown of top, bottom, and middle, where each top, bottom, and middle is composed of its own top, bottom, and middle. And those 3 elements of top, bottom, and middle, which are contained within them, their own top, bottom, and middle. So you have the top, bottom, and the middle of the top, bottom, and the middle of the middle, and the top, bottom, and the middle of the bottom. And so those are 9 elements. And those 9 elements, which is the formation of space, manifest in the space itself, in the weightiness of that thing itself, which is the Malchus. So everything is composed simply of these 10 spheros. And when you look at reality, you see that the spheros that exist beyond Malchus, all of them are already clarified. All of them are factors of hashpa'ah. They are an expression from above down below, and therefore they are refined. They are independent. They don't depend upon human volitionality. They don't depend upon human graspability. Keser, chachma, bina, chesed, gvur, tferes, None of these need the human being kaviyachol in order to be mukuyim, in order to take on their proper role. But the nukva, the malchus, was not completely muvurar. It was not completely refined in terms of how the shleimus of Hakadosh Baruch Hu would be revealed in the world. Why? In order so that there should be a place where the human being is forced to encounter the secret of the bechira, which is the avoida, which is the schar itself. The avoida is the schar. That's the secret of the toiv hahetiv. The choikat toiv lahetiv is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to earn the good. Why? Not only so that we shouldn't be ashamed to look at it in the future, because we'll always be ashamed to look at anything in the future. We're not deserving of anything. We're not deserving of anything. We can say all day, it's not because I've come to a place of feeling I deserve anything from Hashem. It's because I've come to a place of realizing that, wait a second, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no matter what I do, I'll never be deserving, because everything is a matnas chinam. I'm never going to earn what I need to do in order to merit it in its own right, and therefore I'm going to ask for everything without shame whatsoever. So then what's the Nehemah de Kisufa that the Ramchal is trying to free us from? The Nehemah de Kisufa is the ability to live in our own worlds right here, right now, in the secret of understanding that the yagia that we have to engage in, the bechira, is not some symptom of a previous fall from grace where the person is now no longer allowed, God forbid, to live in a state of perfection, and now they're forced to engage in this, disgraceful process of refinement and production, as we see by other halakim of faith in the world that see that as the model. But rather, the Ramchal is being megala to us the sweet nature of the avodah itself, the birur of the yagia, the birur of the bechira. Choykatov lehetiv is that we should be nehna meyagias kapenu bevas achas, at the very moment that we are in the process of refining ourselves over and over, like the Leshem says, as it was written on the krach of his Eitz Chaim, that ha'ikr tachlis hayichud hu shaha'adam yisapich lahaschar atzmo, that the person themselves should be transformed into the schar. And the secret of schar mitzvah, and the secret of oilemecha tir b'chayecha, and the secret of what the Zohar Kadosh is masbir as alma da'asi tadir, that the oilam haba is something that is perpetually emerging into our minds. It's not something that simply rests at the end of the process, but rather it is the very essence of the process itself. And so this place of malchus is left undefined in its chalakim in order so that there should remain a place of avodah. Afilu b'shar spheros. And now we might come to think that the parts of Avzar Anpin doesn't need any rectification, but we see by the parts of Avzar Anpin that there's Amshacha of Moichin, and that there's the Ibor Yenicha and Leda, and so clearly it's not just Malchus that needs the Tikkun, but Afilu b'shar spheros nishar levar masharoi liyois behem letzarech Malchus b'tikkuna. So the answer to that is that all of the deficiency that we perceive in the higher partsufim, especially by Zar Anpin, which is also going through these processes, if in relationship to Malchus Zar Anpin is shalim and only Malchus is muchusar, so then why is it that we see a chisaron etzel Zar Anpin also? But in truth, Zakta Ramchal, that in truth, all of those elements of birurim that remain undone in the parts of Zer Anpin, in that place that is theoretically the mashpia, which is refined, is all for the purpose of Malchus itself, is all for that which it can give over to Malchus, because ultimately, Eishes Chayla Taris Baila. Eishes Chayla Taris Baila and Nekeva Taseviv Gever, and ultimately Malchus itself is the Iker Nakuda, and therefore all of the tikkunim and the processes that exist by Zar Anpin, Kagoin Iba Vekatnus, the Zar Anpin, all of that is only for the Chalakim of Malchus that now exist up there because they've ascended from Malchus, which are also right now going to be part of Zar Anpin, and the secret of Ataras Abris, the Malchus within Zar Anpin itself, waiting to be revealed in the full Malchus, which is Malchus itself. And again, like the Ramchal said, we have to go slowly because we're going to learn what these terms mean. Be'ezras Hashem. V'ha'or harav shala ein ru'uya lihimatze ba ella im kol chalkeha nivarim u'lechein betchila nimtzes gedoyla v'acher kach hektina. And the profound light of Malchus itself, the profound blinding light of the concealment of Malchus, because all the Ramchal is showing us is a radical reorientation to everything, that if everything is Malchus, and Malchus is the Tzimtzum, and the Gilui of the Malchus to Ein Sof Kaviyachol is the Tzimtzum and the Shorish of all things, and then it's in the Skala, in the Malchus of Adam Kadmon, in the world of Akudim, and then it goes down into the secret of the Radl of Olam HaAtzilus, and then it goes down to the Malchus to Atzilus, which becomes the Kesser of Bria, which becomes the Malchus of Bria, and the Kesser of Yitzir, and the Malchus of Yitzir, and the Kesser of Asiya, all the way down to the Malchus to Asiya. All of those processes are not elements of concealment. They are not elements of absence. They are not elements of some symptom that emerges from some trauma that was unexpected and now leaves us reeling, struggling to try and figure out how to survive. But rather, all of these mechanics of Malchus and all of the profound Yerida that Malchus undergoes is all built into the very fabric of how Malchus emerges in the end of the day, back up ever so slowly, back up through all of the stations from which it emerged down from, in order to reveal the spitz tachlis of what all of existence has always been. The Marav Tuvcha Sher Tzafan T'Lorecha, the Or HaTzafan, the Or HaGanuz, the Or of Malchus in its Shirish, which is the secret of Malchus, the Ein Sof Kavyachol, which is the secret of Malchuscha Malchus Kol Olamim and Ani Rishon Vani Achron and Beladai and Elokim, and the secret of Hashem Hu Amelech, Hashem Hu Amelech, Hashem Hu Elokim, and the secret of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and the secret of Baruch Shein Kavod Malchus Elam Voed. All of it is an expression of Malchus that is revealing itself currently in a way of absence. It's not absent, it's not present, it's not here, it's not lost, but rather it's here, but it's unrevealed. And our avodah is to always be mevarer, to be mezachich, everything to reveal that which has always already been here, which one can understand again why it's known that Rabbi Nachman would send people to learn Mesilas Yesharim before becoming a chassid of Rabbi Nachman. And another Maisa goes that Rabbi Nachman would tell the famous story of the individual who went to find the treasure under the bridge far away, only to come to find that the treasure always existed within the home that he had struggled so hard to leave behind. And because ultimately the two nekudos are being mavara one singular thing, that all of that which appears concealed is not absent, is rather always there, it's always present, just waiting to be revealed. And that's the light of what the Ramchal is being masbir, the radical light of Yichud, and that's the light of what that Maisa of searching for the treasure under the bridge, only to come to find that the treasure was always here, which is the secret of the 26th chapter of Mesilas Yesharim, which is the secret of that when it comes to Ruach HaKodesh, when it comes to holiness, when it comes to the expression of true connectivity, Tchilasa Avodah, it begins with work, V'soif Matana. In the end, it always remains a gift. The Or Harav Shala, and this profound light of Malchus, it is not roy, it cannot rest there in a revealed way, ki im kol chalkeha nivarim, until all of the chalakim of Malchus are mevurar, and as we already know, it's just the last nekudas of Malchus in the raglayim of Olam HaAsiyah, which is where the raglayim of Adam Kadon are going to be niskala and harazesim, and it's specifically in those last chalakim of Amalek that have an achiza, in those birurim of Emuna, those are the last nekudas of Malchus that remain. We see originally the moon's lost light. We saw an expression of the greatness of the moon, the fulfillment of Malchus, the pre-existence of Malchus Kavyachol prior to the fulfillment that comes from Zer Anpin. And only afterwards was there this diminution, this limitation. We see this model very often. We see this in the Uber B'mei Imo, which is also Nukud of Malchus. The child in the womb learns the entire Torah, only to come to forget about it. The Yidden receive everything on Pesach, only to come to lose it theoretically, even though Ein Siluk Moichan Oilam, and it's always there, like we just said. It's just concealed in a hidden way, waiting to be revealed again. But now it undergoes a process of diminution and smallness. And why is that? Yein loy haya az. Zmana Leos came, because in truth it wasn't time yet. It wasn't time for Geula. It wasn't time for Geula. Anytime there's a Hesiris of Malchus to reveal herself in the fullest expression, so that means that there's a time of Geula, because Mashiach Tzidkenu is the Nukud of Malchus, and we see this in Purim, which was the biggest Hesiris to Geula, where in Purim, Achashverosh had to write a letter of Kol Ish Shairer Bebeso, because anytime that there's a Hisairus of Malchus the Kadisha, which is the secret of Eishes Chayla Baila, which is the secret of that feminine quality of concealment descending upwards to its primary source, which is the lofty, impossibly high level of Emuna B'Sharasha, which is the secret of Sha'asani Kirtsono, that the Koyach of the Nekeva has the ability to be Medalig Elaharim Mekabetz Algvaos, that has the ability to be Medalig all the way up to Pnimius of Keser, because in truth, Aniva Ayin B'Vasacha, and the depths of Keser are the depths of Emuna. So anytime there's a Hisairus to Geula or Hisairus to Mashiach Tzidkenu, there has to be a reorientation of the valence of that binary power, so to speak, of that balance of prior to Mashiach, where the Mashpia, the Zachar, is going to be Mashpia to the Nekeva, and to calm down that identification with the future orientation, where the Nekeva, the tendency of the Nekeva, is to ascend above and beyond the Zachar, as it truly intuitively knows it is, in the secret of the Bina Yisera Hanisna Be'isha. And again, these qualities of kind of the gendered nature of experience, I'm speaking about the level of how it's Muzbar in Panemius, which is that we all experience both elements of this. There is a Zachar and there's a Nekeva within each and every person, but we're speaking about the qualities of spirituality. And so, anytime that there's a cyrus for that koyach of the nekeva to be misayir again, me'al harosh, so then there has to be a letter that reminds kol ish shayr bebeso, reminding that the process is still on the way. The process is still on the way. It's still badarach. And then in another hisnoitzitus of Another Hitznoitzes of Geula is by the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, which is a Hisayrus to the Sudas of Yasan, which is the place where Yonah ben Amitai is Yoired, is Yoirish, got his Ruach HaKodesh, and Isha, as Tosfos says, a woman in Yerushalayim has the capacity to be Mevar Chitin, which are the 22 letters of the Aleph base, to be Mevar Malchus itself. When there's a Hisnoitzes of that Mayim Tachtoinim that are oile back up to the Mayim Elyonim, which is the secret of the Miyat HaYareach, which is now undergoing an undoing of that Miyut, and it's growing in its strength, and the Mayim Tachtoinim, which is Malchus, and the moon in its lost light, which has been crying all along, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Boed, is being revealed finally to be what it truly is, and only David HaMelech, who understands the true secret of Malchus, is the one who remains in the basement of the Beis HaMikdash, dancing upon the abyss in order to ensure that the abysmal waters of the Mayim Tachtoinim and that his Iris of Geula, that it should come back up, and that the Nekeva should be Megala, that it's higher than the Zachar, and that Emuna Kepshuta and Bittul Betachlis is a higher level than expansion and extension. So David HaMelech had to understand that no, not yet. And that was what he was trying to do in the Shir Malus, where he was pushing down the waters of Malchus, which were seeking to arise again. But we see anytime there's a Hitznoitzitz of Malchus, of Mashiach, which is the secret of Hillel Azakin, who could say Emanikan Akolkan, Ki Hillel is Gematria 65, which is the Gematria of Aleph Daled Nun Yud, which is the secret of Malchus. We see in the Simchas Beis HaShoeva by the Beis HaMikdash. So Chazal tell us that Asu Tikkun Gadol. What was the Tikkun Gadol? What was the profound rectification that they created by the Simchas Beis HaShoeva? But they put the women's section, they put the Ezras Nashim above from the men, and the women were looking down towards the men, because any time that there is a Hisayrus of Geula, there is a Hisayrus of Nekeva Toseviv Gather, there is a Hisayrus of Eishes Chayla Teres Baila, and there's always going to be an expression of that. So the Ramchal is describing the time prior to the ascent of Malchus. It's not time yet for Malchus to be revealed in her grandeur. And therefore, there are two things that we have to understand in terms of what fulfillment of being a human being is, because the human being is the chayil of Malchus. It's an expression of Malchus, which is the containment of the Shechina HaKadosh within the heart of each and every individual, and the secret of Chelek Eloi Kamimal. So the Tachlis of the Shechina is also the Tachlis of Bnei Adam, and Tachlis of Bnei Adam is also the Tachlis of the Shechina. As Chazal have told us, when a person is in pain, the Shechina Kaviyachal is in pain, and when the Shechina is Kaviyachal in pain, the Tzaddikim are in pain. And it's our job to be like the Tzaddikim, as the Tzaddikim taught us, to be in pain over the Churban, and it's not so difficult. La'aseh shleimus l'bnei Adam. There's two things that we have to do. Hasara Sarah, which is getting rid of the negative qualities that appear to grow in the absence of the revealed light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unity, which is the deficiency of Malchus, and Hamshachas HaShefa, which is drawing back down that fullness that is always part and parcel of Malchus. And in spite of the fact that it's not time for the Geula Shlema yet, nevertheless, every Hamshach of Moichin down into Malchus and the Hakara, that this is the light that always was here, that's being mashlim itself to reveal that what I thought was chaser was in truth just a way of Shlemus revealing itself through the koyach of Chisaron, which is the Tachas of Bria. Then I come to be mamtik that element, and I come to live with a moment of yichud there, and I draw the shefa down. V'zehu hasoid be'emes, and this is the deep secret. Ki me'taharas haneshamas nimshach said. This is where the process of the purification of the soul comes from, because every moment that I realize that I'm drawing down shefa to Malchus, and that the shefa belongs to Malchus itself, I'm transforming the moment of concealment, which was the moment of Malchus, and revealing that in truth it was always already a moment of revelation, just concealed in the garments of a moment of concealment. To draw down the proper vitality to this feminine quality, via ba'or hachama, and the light of the sun, which is truly her light, shehu zoi sabachina shebenukva hamashlemas soisa, which is the element of Malchus, which is waiting to return back into Malchus in order to be mashlemet. V'zeh soid matzah v'mitzvah, and this is what we started with when we said in the Zohar Kadosh that when you take Malchus alone and you don't see the fulfillment of Malchus itself, so then it's matzah, then it's dal va'aniya, then it's without time and it's without matzah al shem ma. That what am I eating this for? I'm without moichin, I'm without chachma, without bina, amma v'ima azavani, b'Hashem yaspeni, I'm in a place of matzah, dal va'ani ani. And in that place, what we have to do is not leave matzah. We have to draw the vav of Zer Anpin down into it, and draw the hamshacha of those lights that were originally present in matzah, and draw them back down, and to re-borrow that vav that was ours, even though it's not rightfully ours yet, because that's only going to be ours in the future. We can borrow from the future and draw that vav that was previously ours down into matzah, and it becomes mitzvah, which is going to be the shleimus of the chisaron of Malchus. Ki matzah hu lechem oini, because Malchus and matzah are one and the same. They're a bread of destitution. V'hu b'chinas levada below b'chinas hamashlemes mitzad hazah. And the element of matzah is the secret of Malchus in her isolation, alone, without the element that belongs to her that is resting in Zah, that fulfillment that comes from Zer Anpin. V'ha mitzvah hu shlema, but the secret of mitzvah is shlemus that comes to Malchus, is the drawing down of that light that previously belonged to Malchus, and the revelation that in truth the emptiness of Malchus is really a reflection of the most profound light that can't be revealed other than by way of tzimtzum, other than by way of concealment. Besoid or halavanaka or achama. This is the secret when I draw the vav into the matzah, that diminution of the light of the levana now gets fulfilled, and that light of the levana is now going to be like the or of the chama with its own pre-existent fullness. L'chein amar, and therefore we say kad it's chaberes b'dechura it's kriyas mitzvah b'toisefes vav, and this is what the Zohar Kadosh says in Chelak Aleph Kuf Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, that when matzah, which is malchus, connects to the masculine element, it becomes mitzvah with an additional vav. Ve'eno omer shezun biyachad nikru mitzvah. Matzah vav. And again, like we saw last week from the Ramchal, it doesn't say that now there's Zer Anpin, which is full, which offers from its fullness to Malchus, and now there's Zer Anpin, which is full, and Malchus, which is full, which is the typical way of looking at the relationship between Zun, between Zer Anpin and Malchus. That Zer Anpin is Shalim, and it gives of its Shlemus to Malchus to fulfill it from time to time, and then Malchus descends back into its inherent deficiency. But the MS is that Adir Malchus is Shalim b'fnei atzmo, and the lights that come down from Zah are the lights of Malchus itself that have been diminished so that the true fullness of Malchus can properly reveal itself, because it has the koyach to be moiser nefesh, to operate in that place in the middle that appears to be devoid of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be already down into the worlds of Bri Yitzir and Asiyah, to live in a world of apparent period, because it trusts so deeply in the Achdus that it's not going to be nifkam there. And therefore we see over here that when I draw the Vav down, it's not matzah and the Vav, meaning Malchus and Zer Anpin, as if there's a beautiful unity and a harmonious unity between Zah and Malchus, and that because Zah is kind enough, it gives to Malchus. Ela hanukva hi hanikras mitzvah, but rather nukva itself is what's referred to as mitzvah. Matzah was the state of Malchus in its diminution, in its concealment, but that very state of concealment is the site where the fullness is going to come from, meaning to say, to remind us that in order to uncover that which is fundamentally present, one need not draw things from outside of themselves into themselves, but rather be mazachich and reveal that which has always existed within themselves, as the Magid said when he walked into the base medrash in Mezhebush, that Atzilus is do, Atzilus is do, that Atzilus is here, that the world of Atzilus, the world of Chochmah is here, right here in Malchus, that Bittul and the Hashra of Or Ein Sof is found as much in the lowest place imaginable as it is in the highest place. Ki shleimus hanukva hu his chabrusa b'zachar, because the fulfillment and the process of the fulfillment that takes place to the feminine is only once it's connected to the Zachar to receive the lights that the Zachar was holding for it. V'zoisi havav hanoisefes badavka. And this is why the oisvav is filled within the word matzah itself, because Malchus is what is undergoing a stage of transition into shleimus. It's not simply shalim because it's borrowing from Zer Anpin. Kihi bechinas achas noisefes ba, because now there's a new reality that has returned back into Malchus itself. V'lo mischaberes aleha. It's not simply something that is connecting to her, but it's something that came down from above and now has been revealed to have retroactively always been part and parcel of the fulfillment of Malchus itself. The Hevi Raya Devrei Nuzeh, and the Raya, the proof that I have for this, Shakasuv, as it's written, Ki ha-mitzvah ha-zois, Haresha zois, hi nikras mitzvah. Zois, thisness, is Malchus. It appears deficient, it appears empty, other than the shell of its expression. Mitzvah, we tend to think, we may have thought that no, mitzvah is just when Zer Anpin is mashpia into Malchus, but it's not Malchus itself. So we have a proof that in truth, matzah, Malchus itself, fulfills itself, and it becomes the secret of mitzvah, where there's a shleimus of Malchus itself, which it can only express by way of receiving it from Zer Anpin, but it's not because Zer Anpin is giving it its fullness, but its fullness is pre-existent within Malchus itself. And the raya to this is that the pasuk says, "Ki mitzvah hazois." Zois is Malchus. Zois is feminine deficiency. Zois is emptiness. Zois is devoid of content, and mitzvah is fulfillment. Mitzvah is fullness of content. Mitzvah is connection, and we see that the mitzvah and zois are one and the same. So the Ramchal says, from here we have proof as to what I'm saying, even though it's pshiti lam likra, that the shleimus of Malchus, the shleimus of this worldly experience and all of its concealment is not simply going to be revealed to have been really okay because it led us to a better place, but rather it's going to be revealed that it was the full place itself. Hine makomiti, it was exactly where we needed to find the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that everything is present, and that Atzilus is due, and that Atzilus is here. And in spite of the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created a tzimtzum, there are moments of Hitzneitzitz where we remember the very simple fact that Simsum Eina Kapshuto and that Einun Milvado Mamish, and then we return back into that deficiency of Malchus to draw it down again and again and again in the secret of the Tosefes Kishut that comes about specifically through the Bechira of it all, Be'ezras Hashem.